back to the show and a very, very good morning to you. I'm super excited to be here on this beautiful Monday morning, all right? Because even though it's Monday, we have a lot to talk about because so many different things happen in the world, you know what I mean? And the best way for you to stay updated about all of these different things that happen in the world is, in fact, by being a part of this show, all right? So text me on 078 share your thoughts, share your opinions, and get in touch with me so I can understand what you are, what your thoughts and your opinions are on what we're going to be talking about. All right. So don't forget to text me or call me on 078 and don't forget to share your thoughts and opinions with me either, because all you need to do is just text me and call me. And also don't forget to go follow our socials. All right. And if you like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, you can actually make sure that you're always informed about the very latest that happens all over the world. All right. And if you're someone who loves conversation, if you're someone who wants to be updated on the very latest conversation that happens all over the world, well, the best way for you to do that is by downloading our app, which is available on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store as well. Okay. So don't forget to do that. Don't forget to share your thoughts, opinions, and don't forget to download the app and follow us on our socials because that's going to be absolutely amazing as well. Okay. And now let's actually head into our topic because we're going to be talking about the horrifying conditions that are faced by red list travelers when they come to the United Kingdom, right? Now, the reason we need to talk about this is, how recently our country was opened up and people who were fully vaccinated from the EU and the United Kingdom could actually come to the United Kingdom, or rather the United Kingdom, without actually having to quarantine themselves, right? Given that they could actually provide a negative PCR test, they could actually come to the country and not necessarily quarantine themselves, right? And however, with that, something that we saw is there was in fact an increase in terms of the cost that these people had to spend when they were quarantining in the United Kingdom, right? And in terms of travelers that come from green list and amber list countries, they've actually, been treated substantially better in comparison to people who have been coming from red list countries, right? And this happens to be one of the biggest problems right now. And because it is such a huge problem, it's all over the news, and people are actually, talking about how sometimes the hotel room that they stay in sometimes feels like a prison, right? Because they get terrible food, they get, they don't really get to go out, or even their conditions that they live in, their beds, their bathrooms, the air conditioning, that is in fact horrible, right? Because it's so unhygienic, and also because it's disgusting, because you can't possibly expect any human being to live in that kind of condition, right? And that's what the whole problem is, right? So we're going to be talking about all of that. And if you want to be a part of the show, well, don't worry. You can actually be a part of the show. All you need to do is just text me, call me, let me know your thoughts on this, right? And now, to get back into the topic, now this mandatory UK hotel quarantine system for all arrivals from red list countries actually just became much, much more expensive, right? And this was because initially the cost for a 10-day quarantine in a government approved hotel was in fact just 1,750 per person. However, right now it's about 2,285 pounds per person, right? And this is according to the updated guidance that was released by the United Kingdom government, right? And something that we've heard the government say the past few days is that, look, we're not actually trying to make a profit from the money that is charged by these travelers when they're quarantining in the United Kingdom, right? However, something that we've noticed is that a lot of people, regardless of what list country they're from, they've actually had very inefficient COVID tests, right? And what I mean when I say that essentially is that when people come to the country and ask for these COVID tests, it basically takes up about 6 days for this test to come back. And a lot of people were in fact outraged because they were paying exorbitant amounts of money to make sure that they could come to the United Kingdom, that they could, quarantine and finally get on with the trip that they were going to, or wherever they were going to, regardless of whether they were meeting their families or they were going on a trip. They still wanted to get back with their lives, right? However, because of, because of the fact that these results got really late to come and there was a delay in the process. A lot of people were angry because they were paying so much. And when I pay so much, when I say they pay so much, a person has to pay about 50 pounds to actually get one test. So for a family, that's about 200 to 250 pounds, right? And that was in fact one of the biggest problems that were there, right? So with regard to everything that we have been talking about and everything that we're going to be talking about, it's important for you to understand and keep in mind that the conditions for some of these travelers are not necessarily great, right? And we're going to head into a small break now, but after that we will be back to keep talking about this. So until then, make sure you stay tuned.
Again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, "You've had one to forget," God, there'd be an inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, has how much it's changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense.
They can't accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Or you didn't do very well, and they get upset. And when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young. Well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, he'd say to me, "You had one to forget." That's it.
Yeah, that sounds like a smart guy. I mean, yeah, that's the real fact of the matter. Yeah.
He'd say to me, "You had one to forget. Get over it," and that was it. So I dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, "You've had one to forget," God, there'd be an inquest. An inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of lose. When it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. How much a lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because, as you said, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. For the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid. I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
Welcome back to the show. It's your girl Sarah right here on Relaks Radio, and I'm super excited to be here because we still have a little bit more left to talk about these the horrifying conditions that travelers from red list countries actually go through. All right. Now, earlier I was just talking about some of the terrible states that some of the things that they were going through, like the fact that that test results actually got really late to come. And sometimes because it got really late to come, essentially what was happening was that they wouldn't actually be able to take their whole vacation because they'd have to just wait for their COVID test results, right? Now, to put it very simply, especially if you were someone that came to the United Kingdom to, for a holiday and whatnot, and say you came only for a span of 3 weeks, and then your test results basically take a week to come, they just have 2 weeks to do whatever it is that you were going to do in the United Kingdom, right? So that has been, in fact, one of the biggest issues, right? Now, I want to focus a little bit on these travelers from red list countries, because there were so many people from these red list countries complaining that the conditions that they live in are like a prison, right? One guest actually said that the living conditions are basically like a prison. And this is because there was so much of uncooked food, there were unclean rooms, and even terrible conditions that they had to quarantine in. Because it just does not make sense to me how you'd expect these people, regardless of what list country they're from, they still pay a certain amount of money to come to the United Kingdom and to quarantine. Especially because the amounts they spend are not just simple amounts; they're in fact very expensive. So in instances like that, why are we actually not giving them proper conditions to quarantine in, right? And one guest actually stated that she felt like she was being treated like a leper, right? And that was in fact one of the biggest problems that were there as well, right? So just to make sure and just to keep in mind, something that we really need to focus on is making sure that these conditions that they quarantine in are actually habitable conditions, right? Because like I said, if you're going to pay about 2,300 pounds just to come and quarantine in the United Kingdom, but you still get terrible food, terrible rooms, it's unhygienic, there are patches on the bed, there are bed bugs, then that is absolutely disgusting, and that is something that really needs to change, right? Especially since the government said that, what, we're not actually going to, we're not actually profiting off this scheme. We want to make sure that the people who come to quarantine here in the United Kingdom get the very best of conditions. And it is, in fact, up to them to make sure that the conditions they live in are, in fact, much, much better, right? And that is just the conversation for today. And I'm super, super excited to, be here. I was excited to be here, and I still am, obviously. And I'm so glad I got to share my thoughts with you, and I'm glad I got to hear your opinion as well. So don't actually forget to, continue staying tuned in, because Jamie is going to be here on the chat trap, and she has absolutely amazing music, or rather amazing conversation to share with you as well. So don't forget to stay tuned, and I honestly hope you have a very, very good day for the rest of this day. And it's time for me to head out of here. So goodbye, and I hope you have a really good day.